Anyway, I'm here to share some sad news with everybody. Unfortunately, Last in Line is not going to be performing right now. For those of you who have not heard the news, a real tragedy happened last night, just prior to Def Leppard performing, when the band learned that Last in Line's bass player, Jimmy Bain, passed away here on the ship in his cabin. And obviously it's had an enormous impact on the band and the crew and everybody here that has been dealing with this for around the last 12 or 14 hours. So needless to say, the band is not going to be able to perform. It's been a tough 12 or so hours on everybody, and here's what they've come up with and what we'd like to do this afternoon. I'm going to bring the guys out in just a couple minutes, and they have 3 videos from their upcoming album, their debut album that they recorded. Most of these videos nobody has seen before, and this stands as the last work that Jimmy has ever done. And as you will hear and see, it is truly phenomenal stuff. This album is really, really great. So they want to share with you the last work of Jimmy Bain through video, and also through some stories that the guys will tell around the video clips as we see them. And then what will happen later today, because it was a bit too short notice to be able to get this together at this time, but later on today, in what is a beautiful weather day out there, 8:45 tonight at the pool during the rock and roll residency set, the guys are going to come out and have a guest bass player and do a couple songs in honor of Jimmy Bain to send them off the way he started. Yeah. Jimmy's career goes way, way, way back and has touched a lot of bands and a lot of people, and to end with a band like Last in Line is an incredible statement, especially when you get to hear the record and also get to watch some of the videos and some of his last work. So that's the plan. We hope to see you guys at the pool, but if you can settle in, I'd like to bring out right now, to celebrate the life of Jimmy Bain, the members of Last in Line, Vivian Campbell. Give them a round of applause, guys. It's been a tough little run here. Really happy to see. And Andrew Freeman. And Jimmy Bain up on the screen. So obviously, as tough as this is for everybody, even before we had the news that Jimmy passed away, the few days we spent together on this cruise, we were all sharing stories and laughs while Jimmy was still with us about Jimmy Bain, because he was the ultimate rock and roller in a lot of ways. Vince, starting with you, when was the first time you met Jimmy?
First time I met Jimmy's when we put Theo together, and Viv was already in town. This was in Los Angeles, and Jimmy was flying in, and you guys went to pick him up at the airport, right?
Yeah, we went 5 men in the car down to LAX over the 405, and we picked up Jimmy, just come off a flight from Heathrow, and he had his full rock star regalia on, leather trousers and the cowboy boots and full leather jacket, mirrored sunglasses, and a load of bling. And he wanted to go straight to rehearsal, so we were in a studio called Sound City up in Van Nuys in Los Angeles, and
that was before the movie.
Yeah, before the movie, yeah, when it wasn't so famous, and that's where we rehearsed and recorded the Holy Diver record. And so we get there, and Jimmy obviously being jet lagged, and Jimmy would always have a Jim Beam and Coke in a solo cup. So We'd get there, we'd have a few of those, we played a few songs, and next thing we know, we turned around, the stage had a little riser, kind of like this thing behind us, and Jimmy's legs were hanging off the end of it, and he was completely on his back.
With his bass on.
With his bass on, yeah. And so Vinny,
I drove in, I lived close by, so I drove in, I go in, I walk in, I see Viv, and I see Jimmy laying there. I go, oh my God, what's going on? So I went outside to Ronnie, I said, hey Ron, is this guy okay? What kid? And he goes, don't worry about him, he's fine.
yeah, he said, Ronnie, are you sure about this guy? He's fine, he's fine. And that was the way that Jimmy was always the same way. He looked like he wasn't paying attention until Vinny got to 3. That's when his eyes would open. 1, 2, 3. He was conditioned to come to life in the number 3. So we were saying earlier it wouldn't work with Unterblieben and Loud Open or whatever. That would have no effect. But Jimmy has to be the number 3.
And that never changed. It never changed.
No, it never changed. Like, you know,
But he played the song like this. He was laying down, horizontal, and he played.
sometimes at an angle, like the leaning toward of Pisa. He'd kind of be in this twilight where he'd almost be asleep, but yet awake enough to be just perfectly behind the beat. And I'd like to say thank you all for coming today.
Yeah.
I'm obviously very disappointed. It's been a strange year, you gotta say. I mean, with Lemmy, Bowie, all sorts of weirdness.
Lemon Fry.
It's been nuts, you know, and a weird energy. And then, you know, when we came on the stage with Def Leppard last night, you know, to sound check, we found out that Joe had lost his voice, and then we panicked and we called Andy and kicked him away. So that in itself was the most bizarre Def Leppard gig there's ever been.
And give yourself some credit for singing some great lead vocals too.
I actually thought it was the best show you guys ever did.
I thought you were, yes.
Joe Elliott was standing in the corner and said to me, looks at me, goes, "You all better not be getting any ideas."
But so it went from strange to surreal when 30 minutes before the show, these 2 guys came to my cabin to tell me that they found Jimmy dead in his. We knew that Jimmy wasn't well. He's been suffering from pneumonia the last couple of weeks. And, you know, we didn't see him much. We did a meet and greet without him yesterday afternoon.
Most guys would have said, you know, I would have, I'm not feeling good. I think you guys should get somebody else or cancel it or whatever. He wouldn't have never said canceled it, but he would have suggested to get a replacement for this gig. And but he was such a trooper that he rolled up to the gate at the airport in a wheelchair. Erica and I and my fiance were waiting. Where's Jimmy? But he always rolled up like 10 minutes
Make
before
a Bain
boarding.
entrance, a grand Jimmy Bain entrance.
Yeah.
As always.
Jimmy was always late.
I get to the airport, I'm like Mr. Airport. I'm there 2 hours before, nice and calm. We flew to Japan, not Japan, we were going to Europe, and we're all there, and the plane's boarding, it's almost all boarded, and where's Jimmy? And we see, no Jimmy. Then from down the hall, we see Jimmy walking in. Hey guys, walks right on the plane. You know, we're panicking, and, you know, make sure we get there in time. And the same thing happened flying to Miami. We're looking for Jimmy. You hear from Jimmy? No. And there was a lot of traffic that day in LA. And then all of a sudden, this wheelchair, somebody's pushing Jimmy in a wheelchair, boom, right to the gate. You know, he goes, yeah. You all right, Jimmy? Yeah, I'm fine. And got up. And we went on the plane. You know? So he's a trooper. Anybody else would have said, I can't do this, you know, I'm really ill, you know, but he wanted to play for everybody, he wanted to play with us, and luckily we got to play that show.
So I realize that a lot of you probably don't know much about Jimmy, you know, because you probably don't know much about Last in Line. But just to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of background, Jimmy Bain actually was the man who gave me my first break in the music industry, so I like to think that if it wasn't for Jimmy, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Back in Ireland, I grew up in Belfast, and when I was 16 years old, I bought that guitar. The only one I ever knew the serial number of, 72987-537.
Let me check that for you.
And so when I first met Jimmy, I was in this band, Sweet Savage, and Jimmy was in a band called Wild Horses at the time. Prior to that, he played with Rainbow Rising. It was a great record. So I'm sure you've heard Jimmy's music if you're not that familiar with his history. Anyway, he did a couple of records with this band, Wild Horses, that was basically Jimmy Bain and Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy after Brian had quit Lizzy. And they came to Ireland, did some shows, my band, Sweet Savage, we opened. And Jimmy, I guess he liked my playing, so he remembered me, and then...
I could take over.
Take over, Vin.
Ronnie and I were putting the band together, Dio. It was just Ronnie and I. He played bass, you know, and he played bass in Elf. So we used to rehearse with just Ronnie and I, and that's how Holy Diver started. You know, we had dum bum 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 bum, and Ronnie would sing because we didn't have a guitar player, and we even auditioned a couple of guys in LA. One of them, Jake E. Lee, you know, and it was really cool. It sounded great, and but then Ronnie decided I want to keep the band international. I'd like to get somebody from Europe or the UK to play in the band. So why don't we fly over to England and check out some guitar players? No other plan than let's go to England, so we fly. And this is the first time Ronnie and I roomed together. Ronnie likes to read a lot. Like through the night, he could read a whole book a night, and I'm trying to sleep. And I'm like, can you turn the light off? And he's trying to read and put the light dimmer, and it's just funny. We're trying to heat the room with the hairdryer because it was freezing. So you can't turn the heat off back then, you know, 10 o'clock and you're freezing in the room. So we decided let's look in the Melody Maker paper and see if there's bands playing that we can go see and check out guitar players. So the first one we went and wound up seeing, we thought there'd be some other bands there, was Motorhead at the Marquee Club. And we walked in there, it's packed, and it was so loud. Me and Ronnie were pinned against the wall like this. Holy shit, it's loud. You know, so that was a trip. And then the next night, the idea was we were waiting for Jimmy to come off the road, because he had some idea for guitar players, being Viv. So the next night we go, okay, here's a band playing at this club, let's go. So we went to this club, and it was a reggae band. So it was, you know, guy with dreadlocks, and I said, that's the guy. There we go. So it was just funny winding up in all these different places and different musics, you know, styles of music, and then finally got a hold of Jimmy and said, okay, so what's this guitar player? Who's this guitar player? And then
He called me.
Yeah.
At 2 in the morning. He actually called my father. My father was called Vivian also, and he was in the phone book. So.
Actually, we were looking for his father.
Yeah, he's a much better guy. But there weren't many Vivian Campbells in Belfast, and the phone book back then was only that thick anyway. And so I just remember my father waking me about 2 or 2:30 in the morning saying there's a drunken Scotsman on the phone. It took him a while to realize that he wasn't. Jimmy, the phone conversation went like this. Hello? And my father woken up, what, who's this? It's Jimmy. Vav, is that you, Vav? So it was Valve, but it took Valve to find out that it was actually me he was calling for. So he came around, he woke me up. I went downstairs. It was one of those old rotary dial phones, just tethered, not like you kids with your cell phones. So I'm down there talking to Jimmy Bain. He says, I'm in a hotel room in London with Ronnie James Dio and Vinny Appleseed. And can you fly to London tomorrow? I couldn't fly to London because I had no money, but my father, God bless him, after being woken up in the middle of the night, bought me a plane ticket the next morning to fly over. And we get to the room, and I meet Vinny, and the first question I ask Vinny is, how do you do your laundry when you're on the road?
He asked the right guy because
I could sense that Vinny.
I told him.
So that was our first discussion in the hotel bar. And then we went to the rehearsal room with 17987537, Jimmy's Yamaha BB3000 bass. And Ronnie showed me the riff for the song Holy Diver. And that was it, and we played, and the guitar solo came. Time for the guitar solo. So Ronnie's actually rolling a joint, maybe I shouldn't have done He was rolling a joint in the corner, and so the solo I played, I did all my guitar player licks, and he was just like... So any of you who are guitar players will know that you always do your fancy shit first, you know, like check this shit out, all flash, fret wanking, you know, and so after a while, actually after about 20 seconds, I ran out of ideas. So now Ronnie was recording this on an old cassette tape, and interestingly enough, just to jump ahead, a year or two later, Ronnie found the cassette in LA, and I was staying at his house at the time, and he played the cassette for me. Funny enough, he was rolling a joint at the time. And,
I think he's rolling one right now, isn't he?
with Jimmy.
With Jimmy. With Jimmy, absolutely.
So now going back to my audition at the rehearsal room in London, and I'm playing, and I'm thinking, shit, I've run out of licks. So I start playing them backwards, sideways, whatever. And Ronnie's like, no, keep going. So it's gone on and on and on. And I eventually totally run out of stuff, and I start playing like basic rock and roll, Chuck Berry, double stop licks, like real simple stuff. And so fast forward a year or two, Ronnie and I were listening to the cassette, and it came to that part, and Ronnie went, that's it. So that's when I knew you were the guitar player for me. So basically when I ran out of ideas, that's when it got good. So I like to think that all of a sudden I was forced to actually improvise and come up with something, and that's kind of the vibe, and that was the spirit that we brought into the studio when we wrote and recorded the Holy Diver record. That anything would go, you know. Don't fall back to your stock licks and your standard stuff. And then we Last in Line have an album coming out on February 19th called Heavy Crown, and we went into the studio to record that record with exactly the same spirit that we went into the studio to do Holy Diver, and that was anything goes. There were no boundaries, and it was a very...
Same instruments too.
Yeah. Do you know what's the serial number?
Seven. No.
So
8675.
Yeah, 309.
You know, the Last in Line record, the Heavy Crown album, we knew it was going to be good, and I hope I don't sound big-headed when I say it actually came out fucking great. And it was the last thing that Jimmy Bain was involved in. Jimmy was very, very involved in this record. As a player, as a writer, we all wrote all the songs together on this. It was very, very much a cooperative effort. Would like to play you something from it. We have a few videos. You may have seen this one already. There's a few others you would not have seen, but this is called Devil in Me. Joe, you want to roll that?
That's what good music is all about right there, guys. That's the some real shit as far as I'm concerned. I tell you, every time I hear that song and watch it, you know, Vivian's been nice enough, the guys, to kind of get me into this very early in the progress. And when Def Leppard was on tour last summer, I took my wife to the show. She never goes to any shows ever. She's not really into this world of music, but she likes, like every female, Def Leppard. And so she goes to the show and she's excited to see Stakes and everything. And I said to Vin, I said, hey, I'd love to hear a Last in Line song. And he said, oh yeah, come on the bus, I'll play you one. We sat there for an hour and a half and dissected the record while my wife sat there like, missing Stakes, you know. So I think the only reason why we stopped talking and listening was because he had to go on with Def Leppard at that point. But it's a phenomenal, phenomenal record, and I can't recommend it highly enough, coming out February 19th. I want to ask you guys something about Jimmy, because you guys were, obviously, Viv and Vinny have this biggest history with Jimmy because of their time in the Dio band. And I think, Viv, you were telling me that probably the most famous Dio song and the biggest hit, Rainbow in the Dark, and one of the most signature moments in that song, the big hook, the keyboard part, that's something that, there's a story to that Jimmy actually came up with, right?
Yeah, well, we were back in Sound City at the rehearsal room, and the record was almost written. That was one of the latest songs I think that we had done, was Rainbow in the Dark. And we recorded everything on a little 4-track Fostex. So we recorded the track and we were listening back to it. And in the corner of the rehearsal room, we had a Yamaha DX7, which I'm not kidding you, that was the quintessential 80s keyboard. Everyone had one, all the kids had it. So it was set up there, and Jimmy, while I was playing back, Jimmy had his customary solo cup with Jimmy Bain and Coca-Cola. He had his customary Marlboro Red. So he had his Irish handcuffs going. He didn't have any free hands. And so the track's playing, and Jimmy just, he's probably stoned. I don't know. He walks up to the keyboard and he puts the Marlboro in the mouth, and he goes, and Ronnie goes, yes! And no disrespect to Eric Norlander or any other keyboard player in the building, but a keyboard player would have done this. He would have put the drink down and the cigarette down, and he would have gone, and the hook might not have been the same. It would have been, yeah, okay, that's impressive, but it's not immediate, So, thank you, hey, for holding my Jim Beam and Cook. Yeah, that's where Jimmy came up with it. He actually played it on the record too, because it was pretty fucking easy, right? And I think he did it one-handed.
Magic created by the Irish handcuffs. And yeah, go ahead, Andy. I want to get you involved here because you obviously don't have the same history you didn't have the same history with Jimmy, from the Dio stuff, but obviously you have history with them in the creation of this record.
Yeah.
So talk about did you first meet and get to know Jimmy when Last in Line came together?
No, I met Jimmy, Vinny and I were in Lynchmont together about, 10 years ago? So like a hot minute. And
That's where I met Andy the first time.
And we got off the road, and Vinny and Jimmy had a little all-star cover band called Hollywood All-Stars. And their singer was not available or sick or something. And so he asked me if I could do a show. I think it was in Riverside, California. And so we show up there, and I don't think I met him. I think we didn't rehearse. I think we went.
Yeah.
The first time I remember meeting him was at this gig, and we were, I guess it's great. It was you and Carlos Carvazo and I don't remember, Jimmy and somebody else. And so, I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing with these guys. This is awesome. And kind of like last night. And he set time. Well, it was about 20 minutes before set time. No Jimmy, I got schooled very early on the world of Jimmy Bain, and he, 10 minutes before he's not there. Fuck, where is he? 5 minutes. Showtime, still not there. 10 minutes into the set time, he just comes strolling through the door, short sleeve, I'll never forget the short sleeve Hawaiian shirt. And he had, you know, he was very healthy at the time because his belly was out to here. And he definitely had been eating a lot. So his belly was out to here. He had this little crappy little Steinberger type bass, you know, just with no headstock and a tiny little thing. And he just walks up and plugs in and he's like, let's do it. Plugs in and he just killed he didn't miss a note, you know? And you would expect like a guy like that to walk in and be a mess, you know, but he wasn't. He came in and he pretty much ran the room, you know, ran the band, you know?
Jimmy could plug into a refrigerator.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I swear to God.
I'm telling you, this little bass is just, it looks terrible. He played at rehearsal too before we left because all the stuff was on the way here. It's just, it sounds great, he sounds great, so.
Yeah.
Should we have a look at another song? You
Sure.
Well,
Viv,
tell me about this song. This is the Heavy Crown album. We wrote and recorded 10 songs for it. And then our manager called us up and said, guys, you didn't read the contract. You actually need 12. So this is after the record. We thought it was done. And we had to write and record a couple of songs more in a hurry. And the last two songs we wrote were Blame It On Me and Star Maker. We're going to play you Blame It On Me. And it was the last thing that Jimmy wrote. It was Jimmy's riff.
This has not been out yet either.
It has not been out yet. And Andy can tell you a bit about the song, because I don't listen to the lyrics. They're just in the way of the fucking guitar solo. Hurry up, and while we're talking about that, I think Andrew here did a fucking fantastic job on that. Not just a great singer, a fantastic lyricist, and he did Jimmy's riff proud with this one.
You know, one thing I wanted to mention about Jim before we start this is that, you know, has this big history and, you know, being around rock and roll for years and playing with all these great bands, and he really loved this band, you know.
He did.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't have any, you know, I don't know if he had any tattoos, but he got one tattoo on his arm and it was our logo, you know. And I would think that, you know, he would have like a rainbow tattoo or a Dio tattoo or something, you know, huge, but
Yeah, he got that.
he showed up at rehearsal one day, like, are you crazy, dude? What are you doing to yourself?
Yeah,
This thing is going to be done in 3 months. What are you doing?
no, it was the only tattoo he ever had, and I remember when he first got it, it looked like it said "Last in Line."
Yeah.
Jimmy, are you sure you got that right?
I think it was a prison tattoo, but you know, good on him.
Anyway, so it's Jimmy Bain's last ever riff that he wrote.
Yeah.
It's called "Blame It On Me." Joe, you want to give it a spin?
Last in line, ladies and gentlemen. Blame It On Me.
A little bit of bottom end on that, huh?
Oh my gosh, we were just saying that when you hear a record that sounds that good, and then you think how tragic it is when people listen to music on YouTube through their little speakers on their phone. Oh my God, it sounds amazing. We should also say that what you heard, the music on this record was produced by a guy I'm sure a lot of you guys know, Jeff Pilson. He produced the record amazingly well, and had to be a lot of fun working with him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It was great. We actually met Jeff on the Dio Last in Line tour in 1984. Dokken were the opening act, so this is when Vinny and I first met him. So it's interesting how it came around full circle. And he's such a great producer and great engineer. Has a great studio, and he really got the vibe that we were going for on this record. So he was a perfect producer, and because Jeff is such a great singer in his own right, he really brought out the best in Andrew. I thought it worked really, really well.
Jeff knows how to get a drum sound with Pro Tools. It sounds like it's analog, you know.
Yeah.
You hear the skins rattling, and I love that stuff, you know, make it dirty and things squeaking and all that stuff.
I mean, he was also from, you know, the Jimmy School bass playing. You know, you know, Jeff is like he's a phenomenal bass player. So, you know, when Jimmy came in and just like the rig is already set perfectly, and you know, he was able to capture his performance. You know, the best tone, the best playing, between the two of them, I kind of felt like it was a bass record.
And a great bass sound. That bass sound is...
Yeah, just
And I've said this many times too. I think what's so cool about what's happened with Last in Line, where this originally started out as a band with the original Dio band playing songs from those first 3 records. As you can hear from this record, which is coming out next month, this is now evolved to a real band with amazing original material. There's still going to be the Dio stuff, but... And trust me, you guys know I don't say this stuff if I don't feel it. When I heard this record, I was like, wow, this is a whole different thing now. Because yeah, it's great to pay tribute to the Dio stuff, and it's awesome to hear you guys play that. And Vivian, you re-embrace that on guitar again. But when you have material this good, I mean, you really have the best of both worlds going with this thing. So congratulations, and it's awesome stuff, man. It really is. We have one more video to show, which nobody has even seen or heard this song, and it's actually one of my favorite tracks on the record. But before we get to that, an obvious question that has to be asked, and I know this is all incredibly hard for everybody and very fresh that we just lost Jimmy, but can you guys speak on if the plan is to carry on with the band in some way once the dust settles from all this? Have you thought about that? Do you want to continue this?
I mean, obviously, this is all so fresh, and we're just processing this, and it's very fucking surreal to be sitting here with Jimmy, going. Less than 24 hours.
We're supposed to be playing right now.
We really believe in the record. We know that Jimmy really believed in the record, and he really invested an awful lot in it. I don't know what the hell we're going to do. To be honest, we were going to go on tour in March, April, and May, and do some shows in the States and over in Europe, and obviously that's way up in the air. I really don't know what we're going to do, to be honest. Well, I do want people to hear this record. Absolutely. I mean, I think that we'll do whatever we have to do to promote this record and get it to people's ears, for Jimmy's sake, if nothing else, Did anyone out here know anything about Jimmy Bain before you walked in here this morning? Yeah? Okay. Because I want to set the record straight on one thing. We tried to keep a lid on this last night, but in this day and age it's impossible. And I woke up this morning with emails from all around the world with people offering condolences on Jimmy's death. And so obviously the cat's out of the bag. Which really, really sickens me, because we had wanted to tell his family, his daughter, and his grandchildren, and now they're going to read about it on Blabbermouth or something. So that I'm very upset about. Secondly, I know that a lot of these internet bottom feeders are going to be going on, oh yeah, I'll bet it was heroin, or he probably died with a needle in his arm, because Jimmy did have his battles all his life with his demons. But for the last 18 months, when he was writing and recording this record, Jimmy was sober, and he was lucid, and he was involved. And he was really excited about this record. It meant an awful lot to him, and he was looking forward to the next. So I want you to just know, Jimmy, as far as we know, until there's an autopsy, we really don't know, but we know he was dealing with pneumonia the last couple of weeks, but he was certainly sober, There was nothing like you're going to read on the internet about Jimmy Bain and his drug history, his drinking problem and stuff. That's, that may have had a cumulative effect on his life. I'm sure it took a toll over the years, but that's not what killed him last night. Anyway, I will thank you all for coming to church. We have one more video to play, another song. This is scheduled to be the next video and single released in advance of the album. And it's a song that we really believed in, and I think it's a song that Eddie really liked.
Great.
It's a song called Star Maker. I don't know if any of you were at the gig the other night in Miami. So we actually played 3 new songs. We played Devil and Me, we played the song Martyr, which was also a Jimmy Bain riff. And we played the song Star Maker, and little did we know it was the one and only time we'd perform it with Jimmy. But we played the fucking shit out of it. Despite it being a crap sounding room, Vinny came off the stage and said, wow, you nailed that. We did, you know. Jimmy fucking nailed it. Yeah! As we always did. And this is Star Makers. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
We'll be at the stage tonight.
8:45 to conclude, you guys. I'll see you guys later. Thank you, everybody. Give it up for me, guys. Andrew Freeman, Vinny Appice, Vinny Campbell. And Jimmy Bain. The record is out on February 19th. It's amazing music, and definitely go and check it out. We know it's a beautiful day outside, so thank you everybody for coming in. I'm sure on behalf of the band, they all appreciate you hanging out. And obviously this was very different than everybody intended it to be on this stage less than 24 hours ago. But we appreciate it, and we thought it was a good way to send off Jimmy, remembering him, how we first heard about him playing some kick-ass music. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Tom Keefe will be up here in a little bit on this stage as well. Enjoy your day and be at the pool, 8:45 tonight. Watch these guys play some stuff and remember Jimmy there as well. Have a good final day.
Thank you.